Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of December 6th, 2021. We have an active and really powerful and super intense sky playing out all throughout the week. And even though a lot is happening in the sky right now all throughout the week, it is still the past, as in the 4th of December, Sagittarius total solar eclipse that lingers very, very strongly still, because the solar eclipse has a sphere of influence of the next 6 months. So usually the week just after the eclipse is still very heavily influenced by that energy. So that is one kind of intensity that is weighing heavily upon us. It's really starting to turn into a very, very strong pressure cooker. And then the pressure is turned even higher by the perfecting square of Uranus and Saturn, the signature astrological conversation of 2021, that will perfect itself on the 24th of December. Then we have Mars in his ancient ruling sign of Scorpio, so very, very strong and powerful and intense, holding some key celestial conversations. That's another dimension of pressure and intensity. Then at the end of the day, we have a lot of sextiles in the sky, and sextiles are harmonious celestial conversations, but they need action, they need decision, they need attitude, they need determination. So that's a lot of energy input. That's a lot of, burning steam. Even if it's just psychological, that is basically energy usage. So it will require a lot of work to be put to good use. And if this wasn't enough, we have squares apart from the Saturn and Uranus square that are really gonna add a very potent and perhaps not very optimistic psychological layer to all of this. So we will also need to tap into our most masterful coping skills. And also, to be totally honest with you, spirituality and spiritual practices might not be our very, very best friend this week either, because Neptune converses in tension with the Sun. So that is the energy of strong disillusioning, that is the energy of, the bubble of idealism, optimism, everything's gonna be alright, I'm doing fine, everything is positive, everything is working out fine. It's gonna shatter very, very quickly. And perhaps it's not the shattering of the optimistic bubble that is delicate, but the drowning effect of a direct Neptune. But Neptune just went direct very, very recently, so it's really powerful. It really hits us strong. It suffocates us, it drowns us. And even if it wants to drown us in optimism and ideals and faith and spiritual vibes, it's not really healthy. So we have to struggle either way to stay balanced. But even that is going to be challenging in a totally different way, because Jupiter squares Mars. So that's a kind of bitter reality check. And if all of this wasn't enough, the salt on wounds, so to speak, and I'm so sorry to use this expression, is the Eris and Venus square, but Venus is also conjunct Pluto, so that energy is especially relevant from a collective perspective, because we might be challenged financially. That can represent like an acute, like a really, really outrageous misuse or even abuse of power from authorities, centralized power, government, etc. But Eris, the freedom fighter, people are definitely not going to tolerate that at all, because they're already on the edge of rebellion, if that makes sense. So this will really add the salt to our wounds collectively, especially, which are already sore enough. So with this being said, let's begin the horoscope. And we begin the week, as I said, the effect and really strong influence of the solar eclipse still lingers. So we are still processing that spiritually and psychologically. Of course, this strong karmic energy might not have manifested yet physically, but we can still feel it, and we feel it very, very strongly. So basically, that eclipse was like a reset, and regardless of where Sagittarius falls in your own personal chart, which area of life it influences, it still has an element of faith and philosophy, worldview, perception to it. So a reset in that sense, well, it's not going to be sugar-coated, if you know what I mean. There are going to be doubts, there are going to be insecurities, there are going to be moments when we just think to ourselves, what do I actually know about life, about the universe, about everything? What can I trust? Can I even trust my own senses? But that is not really a bad thing, to be honest, because as my favorite astrologer Nadia Shah always says, healthy faith questions itself. So, that is actually a good thing. And we must never forget that this eclipse is quantum leaping us to the future. Something positive and something constructive, something authentic is meant to be built on this for the long-term future. So of course it has to be some kind of crisis attached to it. But I promise you, in the worst case scenario, in 6 months, you're definitely gonna be in a better place in that area of life, if not more, where that 12 degrees of Sagittarius falls for you personally. Then, of course, the next big thing is that Saturn and Uranus are perfecting their square. This is tension in all possible senses. This is where sometimes even fate plays tricks on us. Unexpected challenges, inconveniences, a strong irritation coming even from the most unexpected places, unexpected people, synchronicities of the not welcomed kind, so perhaps small moments of misfortune, or maybe inner tension where we're so desperate for that breakthrough, because ultimately what this square is meant to do for us personally, and of course collectively as well, is to push us, drive us, whip us to achieve somehow that breakthrough that we need in our lives. Breakthrough to upgrade our own value systems. And even if psychologically we completed this part, it has to be possible physically as well, whatever that means for you personally. Maybe daily routines to not only get on that healthy diet, but stick to it, make it your own long term. This is just a simple example. Or get out of your comfort zone, build up true self-confidence, believe that you're very attractive, that you have everything that you need, and go find yourself a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a partner. Go and be attractive. That is also an example. But for most of us, it may be actually a financial breakthrough that we need. Let's get out of poverty. Let's get out of this horrible prison-based lifestyle that no longer serves us. Let's do something with our skills and talents. Let's not be shy from success, recognition. Let's learn to receive. The world is no longer the same as it was even 3-4 years ago. So let's just upgrade our new outlook on life and the world. Let's be more authentic. Let's be more optimistic. Let's fight and work for the future. So this energy is likely to play out in this way for most of us. And ultimately this is the final goal as well. But until we actually get there, well, there are gonna be a lot of irritations, a lot of unexpected inconveniences, triggers, even anger. Uranus is the planet of rebellion, so you will definitely rebel one way or another against the person, against yourself, against society, against religion, against spirituality, against whatever triggers you the most. But there's also that Saturn. Well, you need structure, you need grounding, you need stability, and as rebellious as you are, and even if your sense of adventure is big as the cosmos, you just know that you can't, basically leave your house like the Fool tarot card, the symbol of Uranus, and just head out on a journey into nowhere. You need food, you need resources, you need stability, you need security. You might have parents, children, family, so much. So it's not even just about you. Aquarius, the other people, the connections, the interhuman connections, for example. So it's really difficult. It's so very complex. There's another side to this energy, technology. Is technology my friend or my enemy? Well, chances are both. So how do you decide the limits? How do you decide what you can allow and what you cannot allow? And this energy is going to last all through December and all through the first 2 months of 2022. So yes, it's not going to be easy, but this perfects itself on the 24th of December. So we're going to have a really interesting Christmas this year. But of course, let's see what good things are in the sky playing out, because it's not just all doom and gloom, it's not just irritation, stress, and inconveniences. We have a beautiful sextile between Venus and Mars. Venus, the female principle, Mars, the male principle. Mars very, very strong in its home sign of Scorpio. So this is basically a treasure seeker energy, whatever treasure is to you. Psychological treasure, material treasure, job, career, business, project, opportunities, love, romance, corporal pleasures. This is a very strong motivating energy. This kind of makes you dream and, truth be told, obsess a little bit. But, it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially with all this tension, because something has to keep us going, and not always is love and light and optimism and, our usual coping skills. Sometimes that's just not encouraged by the stars themselves. A healthy dose of obsession, even though this is such a dichotomy, what I just said here, yet if we manage to balance it out and be aware, we can turn it into sheer strength, willpower, getting what we want, getting what we desire. Or in a different expression, Venus is in the sign of Saturn time cycles, hastening stuff, making things quicker, maybe karmically or quite physically, or simply mustering the strength to work for what we want. And this energy can also add a much healthier sense of self-worth, because ultimately we deserve it, Venus in Capricorn. We deserve it for the simple fact that we have been born here in matter. We're living, breathing, sentient beings, so we can do a lot of good. But before we can do a lot of good, we also need to be okay ourselves. So this is, for example, a very healthy spiritual expression of this energy, but spiritual not in the realms of Neptune where it's sheer fantasy, but a very fair and down-to-earth approach to look at this. We also have Mars conversing in the same matter with Pluto. This is also very strong psychological empowerment. Of course, this is also obsessive, but as I said, Pluto, our strength, Mars, our willpower. Let's use our greatest strength to get where we want or we need in life, especially Capricorn. Capricorn, down to earth, material, career, that which we need to be alive and be well and function, etc. And all of this for the longer term future. So it's not just the now. It's also tomorrow, and it's also basically to do all of this with dignity, with pride, with diligence, with wisdom, with based on our life experience and that which we learn to master. Now, of course, later on in the week, around the 11th, if I'm not mistaken, when Venus meets Pluto in the sky, they hold the sextile together with Mars. So this can be a big psychological boost when we get an opportunity and we decide to work with it. For example, the Saturn and Uranus square can also bring us certain opportunities which are big, which are relevant, which are significant, which can help us get the breakthrough that we need, but we need to step out of our comfort zone greatly. So we're not even 1 foot in our comfort zone, we're totally outside. But if we muster the courage, strength, willpower, ambition, and know that we deserve it, to go with it, go for it, work for it, stand up for ourselves, it can really do a lot of good. And with sextiles, especially when Mars is involved and also Venus, whatever we work for, into whatever we invest our time, energy, focus, including just sheerly psychologically, for example, our healing, or spiritually manifesting, especially Mars in the sign of Scorpio, the occult. And this is like proper occult, like summon spirits in a real sense to help us, and any other occult practices. Well, it does the job because we invest the energy, so it fuels it, it makes it happen. This is the key to turning a sextile into a massive empowerment, to put the effort in. That's why it is a harmonious aspect, but it's not easy because it requires our input strongly. Also, later on, towards the 11th, we have Jupiter sextiling Mercury in the sky. Now, this can represent good news, this can represent fortunate communication, this can represent something positive, something helpful, something useful coming from your connections, your social circle, friends, your professional reputation. It can come internationally from another country, foreign country, a foreigner. This can also be a really, really optimistic energy where, we have all this doom and gloom in the background, and then instantly something just comes along and gives us the power to believe, and chances are we tend to believe it that much stronger because Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius, Mercury planet of the mind. So when the mind makes sense of faith, when there is certain kind of logic to it, a certain kind of rationality, even if it's non-linear, well, then we believe it that much stronger, and we are able to put this to really, really good use in any way, shape, or form. Or, the most simplest expression, ask for help, and someone comes and helps you. Jupiter in Aquarius, Jupiter is the planet of good fortune, the great benefic, and Aquarius can be your friend, social circle, even total strangers, because we're interconnected after all, and the internet. You ask for help, and you get that help from someone. Doesn't matter who that someone is. And also, it doesn't matter necessarily what kind of help you need, as long as Mercury, you speak it, you communicate it, you share it, and Sagittarius, in a timely manner, but also with a certain kind of, aspiration, diplomacy, but not the Libra diplomacy where you're just nice and polite, but you project your faith into your words. So you kind of appeal to someone's higher mind, so to speak, of why they should help you. Like, let me just give you an example. Let's say that you're a pretty solitary person and this is your nature. Maybe you have strong Pisces placement or something like that. And you just feel under this strong and ruthless pressure, which is both inner and outer, that right now you really don't want to be alone. You just need maybe a hug or something like that. Venus in the sign of Capricorn, earthly. And you just speak it, you share it. Maybe just put it on Facebook, I need a hug. Or I would really like to just chat with someone. And maybe someone writes back, oh, I waited for this for a long time, but I didn't know you were open to this. And immediately the sextile's expression is fulfilled. And who knows what might be born from that simple gesture. And chances are things are gonna be born from gestures because Venus is conjunct Pluto, and one of its more favorable expressions is new relationships, but which are really intense, almost to the point of obsessive, but that in this case is not necessarily bad. Because look at it this way, how can the universe detach someone as a sign of help from great pressure, tension, social media, news, everything that's going on in the world, by sending someone who they're very, very attracted to, regardless in which way, and then the obsession sparks up, and then everything outer stops mattering, stops even existing temporarily, and everyone focuses, as in that person and the other, on this new connection. And then we have a Venus retrograde. Venus is already in shadow. And during this Venus retrograde, maybe they start getting to know each other profoundly. And who knows what might result from there. Chances are something long-term, Capricorn, even if it's like, it's a possibility, an unhealthy obsession, a big life lesson, which will not be taken in the offensive sense, which will not turn into a big wound, but rather a big wisdom, if that makes sense. This also is the energy of infidelity, for example, that can be one of its expressions, but ultimately, doesn't it reveal the truth? In any way, shape, or form, because this is the energy of temptation, Pluto, the shadow, and maybe someone genuinely doesn't want to be like infidel in any way, shape, or form, but a situation, the hand of fate triggers that person, and they see a different side of themselves, and they think about it. Why did I do this? Well, because I don't love my partner anymore. And surprise, surprise, the big unconscious truth is revealed, and it changes everything. Pluto, the planet of transformation and alchemy. But this is also a financial power, because both Pluto and Venus have a lot to do with money, finances, material power, material control, control over finances, management. But naturally this might manifest most of all collectively. So there are going to be certain changes or truth being revealed regarding banks, banking systems, global economy, local economy, everything that has to do with the flow of money, transaction, contracts, everything that has to do with legal agreements, but which are unilateral. So it's not Libra where you have to sign and the other signs and there's the agreement. This is where it's just handed down to you. Do you agree or not? And if you don't agree, well, no electricity, for example. But because this squares Eris, goddess of discord, this is going to spark up spirit, this is going to create conflict, this is going to even bring out the most violent and most rageful aspect of people, collectively of course, and they will be very justified in their actions. And also, as Mars makes its way through Scorpio and will soon enter Sagittarius, it will meet a couple of fixed stars which are not very benevolent, to be totally honest with you. So there is conflict, there is aggression, even war in the air. So, we must be aware that Mars is going to be very, very intense in the next couple of months. And there are bound to be fights, conflicts. So peace is kind of out of the question, especially from a collective perspective. But my advice is, regardless of what fate brings in your life or what truth is going to be revealed, and especially the darker kind of truth, as in personally, like an infidelity or what your partner has done, what you feel inside of you and anything like that, don't make any hasty decisions. If you can, wait until Venus retrograde ends and Venus moving direct will meet for the third and final time with Pluto, because that will be the moment to, put down your cards on the table and make the choice, make the move make the decision, regardless if this enters your life love-wise, career-wise, work-wise, family, it doesn't matter. Try to be patient, try to be diligent, try not to allow these energies to pull you violently in a certain direction. Make sure that you'll be in control, make sure that you processed everything, and when you make that decision, it's 100% yours, 100% based on what you feel in your heart of hearts, and it's also rational and it makes sense to you, especially for the long-term future and especially on a 3D level, because that is the point of all of this. And as I said, it doesn't have to be anything bad. That is of course a side to it, we're after all talking about Pluto, but it can be, for example, someone wants to change a career and they get the opportunity, they get everything that they need, but they're still not 100% sure if they truly want to do this, if it would make them happy. Or, you meet a special someone and you've been waiting for years, and you meet them and it works and you're attracted and you're fascinated, but you will have to give up your old lifestyle. Is it worth it? Can you do this? Are you truly ready to make a commitment? So, it's complicated. That's why I advise everyone to wait, if possible, with any decision of some sort, may it be contract, moving homes, anything which has to do with something Capricornian, to wait until the 29th of January 2022, or even further into February if they can, to allow this Venus to do her job and to exit from shadow. And we also have a Mercury retrograde at the beginning of next year, so that also needs a little bit of time to be processed, because it's gonna be especially our long-term future, our future hopes, dreams and goals, of our friends and who we want to share our lives with, not romantically as in friends, social connections, and how all of that, how what we desire, how what we're planning is applicable physically in 3D, as in down to earth way, because Mercury will retrograde out of Aquarius, that is the future, into Capricorn, that is the past, present, what is possible materially and what is not possible materially. But also, this is where it gets so very complicated. I do say all of this, but we have a very active Uranus. Uranus doesn't wait. Sometimes it just gives the opportunity unexpectedly when we are the least prepared and we just have to go for it. But the way we can identify the Uranian once in a lifetime opportunity is that it will shock us, and we will know that, we will just know from every fiber of our beings that, this is it, we have to do this. So long story short, we can expect a lot of psychological and situational intensity this week because of this Venus-Pluto conjunction, Venus-Pluto sextile Mars, and of course squared by Eris. Something is gonna outrageous. So something is gonna trigger us a lot. And I do believe that mostly something global, something collective, something that we really, really don't agree with anymore. But we need to be very careful, because one of the more powerful squares in the sky is between Jupiter and Mars. Jupiter expands everything that it touches. It brings out another planet's most extreme expression in a conversation of square. And Mars is the god of war. Mars is action. Mars is very impulsive. And in the sign of Scorpio, it has an intensity and singularity where it just doesn't give up. The way I kind of see Mars in Scorpio, I don't know if you guys seen documentaries with ants. When there is a warrior ant, well, it doesn't matter what happens to it, it will keep on going till its body is like disintegrated. That is Mars in Scorpio heavily triggered. And it's also very impulsive, so we really need a lot of self-control, self-discipline. We really need to have our wits about us at this time, because people will irritate us a lot. Acquaintances, friends from social circles, from social media, maybe total strangers, we are gonna be definitely irritated because that is Jupiter in Aquarius. Information will irritate us, communication will irritate us, maybe work. For some people, it's their work because they're either public people or they work with the public, they work with people, they offer a service. They are gonna be irritated a lot. So we must not allow this Mars, which is intense as it is, and the sextiles and the sextile with Pluto, we must not allow that to take a wrong turn, so to speak. But unfortunately, I'm so sorry to say this, whenever this happens, a very irritated Mars in a sign where it can be very dark, it will lead to crimes. We will see crime rates spike up. We will see aggression of all kind. We will see people losing their wit, people losing their sanity and doing desperate gestures. So this will be all over the news, especially local news, your neighbor. It can be absolutely anyone. This is where some people will definitely fall victim to this energy and, destroy stuff, or even the worst case scenario, hurt other people. And if it comes to protest, Uranus, that it will definitely be part of this week and every week until the end of the year and even next year. This can represent violent protest, like really violent. So, be careful. Be very, very careful. Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius is also very impulsive, quick words, quick choices, quick decisions, haste, but the not good kind of haste, if you know what I mean. So, be very, very careful. Now, if all of this wasn't enough, both Mercury and the Sun are going to be holding a conversation of tension, a square with Neptune. First Mercury at the beginning of the week. Now, this is not so favorable news. This is not so favorable communication. Communication-wise, it can be confusing. It can be misinterpretation. It can be lies, deception. So, be very careful what and who promises you. When you are promised something, if you sign any contracts, look at what you're signing, read it. The small prints, the terms and conditions. If you have suspicious emails, don't click on the link. If you have suspicious messages, anything that has to do with the internet, be very careful and don't click on the links. When something is too good to be true, take it with a pinch of salt, take it as such, be diligent. And also Mercury is the planet of thieves. Neptune is in a degree of Pisces, which, its worst expression can be lies, manipulation, deception, willingly. Someone using psychology and experience with people in the bad possible way. So to con them, to trick them, to steal from them. So be aware of this. This can also represent a promise that has been made to you in the past and you really were looking forward to it. It's not going to be fulfilled for any reason. So this is disillusion, but in terms of communication, terms, mercurial terms. If you have had a booked holiday, long distance travel, plane, flight ticket, this might suffer delay, this might, suffer inconveniences or be cancelled altogether. Borders might be closed again. This is where Neptune can also be the mass psychosis that is going on in the world. That might be a big inconvenience. You might even not feel safe to go on with your usual plans. So it can represent a lot of blockages, but fortunately this energy will move on very quickly because Mercury moves quickly. So it will break the connection with Neptune very quickly. This is just at the beginning of the week, so just be extra careful. And, there is bound to be misinterpretations, miscommunications. So the best possible thing is to turn down the TV, shut down Facebook, social media, and just do whatever you can to stay in your frequency, to stay as stable and harmonious as possible. Now there's also a good side to this energy, because we have this Mercury-Neptune square, which can also represent speaking, saying, giving away secrets, which you don't intend to, but it can act like as a slip, as like a Freudian projection. And along with the Venus and Pluto conjunction, secrets are gonna come out accidentally, so this can add a totally different dimension to this energy, especially very tightly kept secrets. For example, sexual secrets, who did what, money, who stole money, who cheated with money, especially collectively speaking. So in itself, this is also a revelatory energy if we add Venus and Pluto into the picture. This is where fate can also cheat those who are keeping secrets, those who have something to hide, those who have skeletons in the closet. So it can go either way. But of course, to add the salt on the wound, I do believe that the most wishy-washy and not very optimistic and faith-shattering, especially adding to the eclipse, the reset of our belief systems, is the Sun square Neptune energy, because that is pretty heavy. The stronger planet here is definitely Neptune. It drowns the Sun. Sun in Sagittarius, optimism, our faith, our highest philosophies, that which we believe in. Perhaps we are waiting for the saving grace, and this Neptune just drowns it very, very quickly. This can also spell depression. This can also spell, a strong spiritual blockage where we lose our faith temporarily, where we get disconnected from the divine mind. We get disconnected from our spiritual practices, spirituality, our faith, everything which has to do with the divine disappoints us. Or people disappointing us. That's part of the picture. We are definitely going to be disappointed in that sense. This is where it can also be the law, justice, divine justice even disappointing us. Maybe justice is actually on our side, but it doesn't play out that way, or something makes us think that we are victims of injustice. This can be a very strong self-victimization energy. This can be a very strong martyrdom energy. So this is not a very pleasant celestial conversation to be under. Of course, this happens once every year. It's nothing new. But under the present circumstances, it's definitely not going to be easy. Of course, ultimately, it has a healing purpose. It wants to strengthen our faith. It wants to help us ground ourselves in reality. That's why it disappoints us. To basically wake us up a little bit that life is not just about ideals. Life is not just about positivity. And there's also a very strong psychological expression. Well, if you actually think that everything's gonna be okay and all is positive and you can influence reality with positivism, well then, where's the physical expression of that? So that is basically the salt on wounds. If I'd have to name this energy, well, I would name it, where's your gods now? If you get what I mean. So we can expect situations where our faith kind of disappoints us, but we mustn't take it all that personally. We mustn't take it as if the divine is not satisfied with us, or as bad karma, or as misfortune, or as divine humor in the bad sense. But we must just be very, very patient and align ideals with physical reality as well. So that which is applicable in 3D. That's its ultimate purpose. And this energy is gonna be the heaviest for those who are really into this new age stuff with love and light and everything is okay and let's manifest everything that we need just like that. It will be like a strong slap, but a slap where, okay, that is like a methodology that you're using, but you cannot positive away your psychological wounds and stuff like that. Sometimes you have to just suffer it out. And sometimes the key to get what you want, let's say the manifestation, is extremely painful, and there is no way you can bypass this. This Neptune Sun square is a massive no to spiritual and psychological bypassing. However, there is a very dangerous side to this because Neptune in Pisces, escapism. Sagittarius, expansive. It has no limit. So be very careful with alcohol. Be very careful with substances. Be very careful with anything that can physically send you into escapism, because this can be lethal. You won't feel it, you won't sense that it's too much, but it's actually too much. So, be very, very careful with that right now. This energy is temptation, so of course you will want to do that, but have limits. Especially we have Jupiter and Mars square as well. Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, toxicity, like physical toxicity, toxic substances, poison. Scorpio is the sign of death. Then Neptune is in the third decan of Pisces, the decan of Scorpio. It's called the undoing of the self. So we must be very, very careful at this time what kind of escapism we use. And even if it's not physical substance, even if it's like fantasy, computer game, a book, or anything that we're addicted to strongly, it can simply destabilize us and, make our consciousness crack upon us. So that's a mild way to say nervous breakdown. So we don't really need that right now. We don't need that. So we must be strong and have limits, have strong limits. We must be aware that there's a lot of challenges, a lot of tension in the sky, psychological pressure, but also this willingness to succeed, this willingness that I'm not giving up regardless of what happens. And this powerful urge for escapism and pleasure, but the kind of pleasure which appeals to the mind, to the soul. So, as I said, fantasy or substances, alcohol, whatever you're addicted to, regardless of what that is. So, don't overdo it. Even if it's like the most healthiest possible thing, like exercising, going to the gym, or whatever, if you do that in a very excessive way, well, you're not going to do any good to yourself. You might damage your muscles, your heart, blood pressure, etc. And of course, the most worst expression of this energy is depression. It is the depression which is strongly hand in hand with anxiety, because Uranus can trigger us very, very badly. And if other people, rather than comfort us, irritate us, Jupiter square Mars, this can turn into a big nightmare. And Neptune in the third decan of Pisces, I have to repeat this, and I'm gonna repeat this until it leaves Pisces. Undoing of the self, suicide, danger. So if you know someone who is usually not a very balanced person and has problems and suffers from loneliness, and they're the most vulnerable recipients of this energy, check up on them. Do what you can to make sure that they're coping at least. And when they say they're fine, don't believe them. somehow make sure that they're truly fine and are coping with this. Because the most vulnerable people here are going to be triggered a lot. And this is where victims, but not self-victimization, like proper victims. For example, people living in poverty, people with illnesses, strong physical illnesses that make their lives a living hell. Those people who are genuinely lonely, those who have a very stressful job, etc., etc. This is the perfect time to be the kindest to them and to show them support, to be that Jupiter in their lives which sextiles Mercury and not squares Mars, if you know what I mean. Let's not be the irritant, let's be the saving grace. And finally, at the very end of the week, Mars is going to be in an erratic degree of the sign of Scorpio, super aggressive, super toxic, but at the same time super transformative. So let's be aware that the end of next week can be extremely intense in a rather aggressive way. So with this being said, thank you so very much for listening. I hope that this was useful. And at the end of the day, I know it's going to be really hard on a 3D level, and this time around, including on a spiritual level and psychological level. But we must remember the essence of the age of Aquarius, the big picture. We can choose the reality which we live. So we always have power, we always have control. By choosing the frequency, by choosing what we don't want to live, what we don't want to make ours, we can actually stay at least sane enough to wait this out, so this too shall pass. And also, the other big picture of the age of Aquarius is that mind over matter. So that means you always have a choice, and as long as your mind is free and you keep it free, you actually have everything and you have all your future ahead of you. So don't let these blockages trick you into hopelessness and anything negative. So thank you so much again for listening. Until next time, bye for now.